Welcome back to the final video in this series of how to build a racing drone, freestyle drone, you name it, from start to finish. This is it. This is the finish. This is where we put it all together, we test it, and then we take it outside and we do the very first flight. Let's just get, no BS, let's just get right into it. I'm so excited to get this done for you and to get this in the air. So I've got the quad. There's a piece missing. I had disconnected the camera, I guess. These guys here are the camera plate. They must go this way because, let's just unplug the camera again real quick. We're gonna make sure we get the camera right side up. So this is the right side up. And the camera has three screws, and they're gonna line up with these slots here. One's going to go in the center, and then the other two are going to rotate to set the angle. And the camera will want to have up tilt so that as the quadcopter pitches forward, the camera is looking ahead of you. So we're going to just align this so the camera has up tilt. In other words, if you were to get it upside down, the camera could only tilt down, not up. You'll see what I mean. Now these are the screws that came with it. They are Phillips head screws, and let's just see how we're going to do here. One of those is going to go in the center and right in to the center hole. Again, make sure you're installing the camera right side up, like so. Yeah. Now I'm going to leave that loose at first, just so I can install it all without putting stress on the camera. A lot of times this would have come with at least another 2 screws so that you could use this second set of holes to set the camera angle and tighten that down. A lot of times these main screws will be tight enough to hold the camera angle, but especially in a crash the camera might move. I can't decide whether the quad didn't come with, oh yes it did. Yes, it did. I just couldn't find them. I was going to say, or I've lost them. So we're just going to insert a second screw here. And again, we'll just leave that loose. It doesn't need to be tight. And you can see how that sets the camera angle. You just need 1 to hold the angle and 2 to hold the camera. So there we go. Now we're going to set that aside. We're going to get these M3 screws, and we're going to get these 4 standoffs here, and we're going to install the standoffs. M3 screw is going to go through the bottom, and the standoff is just going to thread right onto it. And there are 4 standoffs at the 4 corners of the quadcopter, if you will. 1 in the front, left, front right, and not all the way in the back. Interesting. Looks like the other ones are here and here. That's unusual, but not problematic, I guess. No big deal. The ones in the front are the most important ones because they are going to take a lot of force in a front impact, which is going to happen. You're going to crash this into something eventually. So the front ones, like being right out at the front, are important. The rear ones, not being all the way at the back, it's still I'm a little surprised they did that, and they didn't just, why wouldn't they just push them back? I guess it gets a little thin back there maybe, but I mean it didn't have to. They designed the frame. They could have made it be anywhere they wanted. Not sure what their motivation was there, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Now the video transmitter antenna is going to be installed on this 3D printed piece here, and we're going to install the pigtail for the video transmitter. And it's going to go in like so. So you see how it's aimed down and back. It's going to go in like so. Now there is a washer and a nut that can go on here, but I'm kind of wondering, there's not a lot of threads there. I'm kind of wondering if there's enough threads for us to, because you need to be able to get this antenna screwed firmly down. If you can rotate it like this, you see how I can rotate it easily? That is not screwed all the way down, and it needs to be fully, it doesn't need to be like, you know, gorilla wrenched, but it does need to be fully inserted. And so if we were to then install this nut, I think we would have even more of a hard time. Now the good news is that this is TPU. It's a flexible plastic, and it is pretty easy to compress. I'm not going to actually install this because it'll just take another 0.5 millimeter or something of threads, and I don't feel like I have that. There we go. So now, yeah, now it's snug. By the way, you can see I'm using a wrench. If you choose to use a wrench on an SMA connector, be very gentle. The SMA connector is soft brass, and it is actually really easy to strip or deform or stress. And so if you use hand tools, be very, very gentle. I have a lot of practice doing this, so I almost never damage them. If you treat it like it was steel, you will have a bad time. So I'm wrenching this down enough to sort of compress that. Okay, I think that's going to do it. If I did it just like a half a turn more, it'll be compressed enough to give me enough threads here that I can then, wow, it is really stuck in there. Be really careful also that as you're turning it, you don't stress this joint here. Ideally, what you might want to do is, well, that's not the right thing, but you want to be holding it by this square part, not by this joint here, which you can damage it. I really had to crank that nut down tight. I'm not sure whether I would advise you to follow along, but I've done it. I don't think I've damaged anything, and now this antenna is fully inserted, and this freaking pigtail is very secure. So then we're going to install this on the back. I'm just going to press it down over these standoffs, and it's going to be a little snug. It's designed to be snug, and it's just going to squeeze down like so. Now, as I installed it, I already noticed a potential problem, and that is that if I push this down too far, it's going to hit up against this capacitor, and this has got a little flex, so it's going to move. So you're going to want to leave this up high on the standoffs so it's not slamming down on that capacitor. And then we will go ahead and curve this around. It's the best way to do this. Oh man, really? Really? Did I screw it up? Could I have done it a better way? I don't know. Maybe that seems all right. You don't ever want to kink or deform this coaxial cable, but a flex is okay. Now for mounting the receiver, one thing you always want to do is make sure that the bind button is accessible without having to take the quadcopter apart. This will be, you will really thank yourself for doing this if when you get a new, I don't know, you get a new radio maybe, or you just give the quad to somebody else, or you just lose your bind for some reason and have to rebind it. You will really thank yourself. So I think we're going to mount it on the back here. We just want to also make sure you can see the LEDs easily. Let's see, what I'd like to do, I think I'm going to turn it around and slide it back underneath. And you'll see why I'm doing that in a minute. I'm going to turn it so it's face up. That's not good because with it hanging off the back, yeah, let's not do that. You don't want it hanging off the back because then in an impact it will be damaged, and that's not the point. The whole point of the frame is to protect the components. I think I just can't find a good way to mount my antennas like I usually do. I usually like to mount the antennas with zip ties off the arms so they're underneath the props, and I think that improves durability, but I'm just not really finding a great place to put the receiver so it's sort of out of the way and securely mounted. So I guess I'm going to do the official thing that they want you to do, which is to put them through this 3D printed holder here. We'll route the wires to the front here, and we'll put this back on here. And I guess that's going to go on top of the video transmitter, I suppose. Is there actually room to do that? Damn, there isn't. No, don't want to put it. It's going to be a bottom mount battery. Oh, it's a bottom mount battery. Okay, that's the saving grace, I think. So normally I would want to leave some space between the stack and the top plate because the battery strap for a top mounted quad, if the battery was mounted on the top plate, the battery strap would have to go around and you'd need some room for the battery strap to go through there. But this is a bottom mounted battery, so we don't need to do that. So I guess I'm going to put this all in the video, or at least most of it, because I mean, this kind of problem solving is, I think, a valuable part of the build. Problem solving, I could just go on the internet and look at how other people built it, but that's not my style. I want to figure it out for myself, not just copy someone else's build. I mean, sometimes I copy other people's builds. It's going to go like that, I believe. Oh, I guess I was going to say I'm going to use a piece of tape that you haven't got, but I don't have to do that because you got zip ties. But if you want to invest in a little bit of this stuff, this is Scotch Extreme Outdoor Mounting Tape, and it is very, very useful all around quadcopters for mounting things. Most of the time I do not rely exclusively on this stuff, because in vibration it will give out, but when you combine it with a zip tie, it holds things very, very securely. So we're going to just put this on the bottom here, and it might hold because this is a really nice smooth surface, and just give it a little bit of a wiggle, and that kind of activates it, if you will, and makes it stick. No, I think that's going to come off, so we'll combine it with a zip tie. Now, as we install this zip tie, you're going to want to be very careful not to accidentally press a button or put stress on a wire or get in the way of the USB port or anything like that, which, I'm going to go around this way, requires a little bit of thought. So I'm going to go between the antennas here so I don't stress the antennas, and I'm going to make sure I don't snag the wires, and I'm going to just tighten this down. See, I'm not snagging the wires here, I'm not snagging the wires there. I'm just going to tighten this down such that it holds the receiver in place. And the other thing is, it doesn't need to be super tight. It just needs to be tight enough that it keeps the tape in place. If you do it too tight, it will stress it can flex the board, it can put stress on the board, and eventually maybe crack the board. So there we go. That seems like a good solution to me. We're going to take the camera, reinsert the camera. Make sure it's right side up. Oh, are you kidding me? That's not right at all. I said to the bottom. It doesn't go to the bottom, it goes to the back and the rear. Wow. Alright, camera right side up. We're going to put it down in these slots, and while holding that in place, I want you to just check that the camera can tilt up to make sure it's installed right side up and correct. And then we're going to take the top plate and M2 screwdriver and these, or a M3 2mm screwdriver with these M3 screws. We're going to tighten those down and install them. I'm going to go back. I'm going to retighten the underneath ones as well. In fact, while I'm at it, may as well double check all of them to make sure they are snug. Don't strip them, but snug them all down now that it's all in one piece. We are so close, folks. We're not done yet, though. We've got to get the GPS. The GPS came with this piece of adhesive. You're going to go ahead and use it, but we're not going to rely exclusively on that, because of course not. Now, the GPS needs to be installed with the antenna facing up. That's the part that it uses to talk to the satellites, or really listen to the satellites. And where's that gonna go? I guess we can mount it on top because we don't have a top-mounted battery. The problem with mounting things on top is when you have to take the top plate off for maintenance, then you have to disconnect them, and that's a little annoying. But I gotta tell you, I'm feeling pretty good about that, to be honest, because this will just unplug if we ever need to do that. So but we kind of don't want it too close to this stuff because that's bad. This is going to create interference. I'm going to mount it. The last time I did a GPS quad, I mounted it out on the end of the arm, and it actually worked pretty freaking well. So that's what I'm going to do here, and we're going to see if that turns out to be a bad idea, but it wasn't the last time. That's not ideal. You ideally want it to be a few inches away from other metal, but this GPS unit doesn't have a compass, so it's not going to be as subject to interference. So I'm just going to stick it on the end of the arm, and then, yep, red electrical tape, guys. That's what I do. That's what I do. You know it's true. We're just going to get some of this electrical tape. We're going to put it right here on the end of the arm. Oh, that looks ugly. I don't care. We got to secure this wire. So let's come through here. Maybe take out some of that slack. I guess really we need that to be well out of the way. Like, take it down and run that down next to the motor wires, I guess, to keep it out of the way of the prop. And that's still way too much slack there. This is no good. This is no good here. That's way too much slack. So we got to find a way to get rid of that. And I think I'm just going to try and see if I can tuck this around. Yeah, that's better. Looking good. Well, some people would say that that looks pretty freaking ugly. We don't have antenna tubes. That's okay, because I kind of don't like antenna tubes anyway. But these antennas sticking up here, they're going to get sucked into the props and chopped up. So we don't want that. So we're going to pull out our handy dandy zip ties. And we're going to take a zip tie and stick it through. This would have been easier to do before. Oh boy. Come on now. I know I can do this. Shoot. How about coming up through here? Oh, there. No. How about up through this hole? Get the right angle. Oh my goodness. I got it. I got it. I'm going to stick this zip tie up through the antenna tube here and pull it through adjacent to the antenna. Make sure you don't snag anything as you pull it the rest of the way through. And having pulled that through, you can cut it to length. Just lay the antenna up against it, and don't cut the antenna, just cut the zip tie to be a little bit longer than the antenna. And this is 3/32 heat shrink. We're just going to take some heat shrink. You can use tape if you want to, but heat shrink's better. And heat shrink that to the zip tie. And I think this is way better than antenna tubes, because antenna tubes are rigid and they break in a crash, but this will flex, and I think it's better. Alrighty, there we go. So that's what I like there. And let's see, there are a few things left to do. We're not done yet. We're going to set the camera's up tilt angle. Don't go, especially if this is your first build, don't go bonkers with like 50 degrees. I like to end up at about 30 degrees of up tilt. That's where I like to be. If you know what up tilt angle you like, go ahead and set it. If you're just starting out, I think around 20-25 degrees of up tilt, because the more up tilt you have, the faster the quad is going to kind of want to fly, and the harder it's going to be to control it. Beginners should start with a relatively low up tilt. I wish these screws were actually like 1.5 millimeter hex screws. I like that. It's a shame that that sticks out. That could be better protected. I don't see any way that I could have done that wrong, though. It's good that I see that the receiver is not actually touching the top plate. That's fantastic. Ideally, you don't want stuff transmitting vibration into the stack. You want as little of that as possible. Also, in an impact, you don't want stuff taking shock. So the fact that there's maybe a millimeter of, is it touching? It doesn't look like, it looks like it's just barely not touching. So that's good. It's not squished in there really bad. You don't want that. Let's push this up. There's one more thing that we absolutely have to do, and that is this. Here's what's going to happen. In a crash, eventually a battery strap will let go or the battery strap will break, the battery will eject and it will yank and tug on this. Or just as you're handling it, it'll move around and look, this is going to get wiggled and jiggled and break. None of that is good. So you always want to have strain relief on your XT60. Now this is a bottom mount battery, so the battery is going to be down here and this is going to be sort of coming down this way. So there's a very convenient set of holes right here that we can zip tie to, and that's what we're going to do. I guess I should do I'm going to do the innermost one here. There we go. Now when you tighten this down, what I want you to do is kind of push it in just a little bit as opposed to pulling it all the way out, because you don't want the zip tie to be tugging and stressing the joint. Give it a little bit of slack between the zip tie and the flight controller, and then snug that down. The other thing I don't want you to do is don't pull it firm up against this edge where it could maybe get cut. I'm going to actually lay it flat against the top and tighten it down. You see? So if you pull it snug up against this sharp edge, it can cut. And if it shorts out to the frame, you will get an exciting experience involving some smoke and fire. So that's bad. So we're just going to do that. It can still sort of come around here if it needs to. It could come around the back. It kind of doesn't matter so much where it is, but yeah. And you see how I've put a little kink in there, a little right angle to make sure that there's plenty of slack so that it's not tugging here. But now this can't move, and this isn't going to get wiggled or jiggled as we're handling it. And that's good to do on every build that you do. Always have some kind of strain relief on the XT60. Battery pad. Does it come with a battery pad? You gotta have a battery pad. Well, it came with these came with these motor mounts, but we didn't. These motor mounts can't be from this build because they have 4 holes and these are only 3. So I guess we could use that as a battery pad. We're not going to do that. We're going to use some of this stuff. This is called Ummagrip. It is a gel battery pad. There are no-name brand ones as well. You could certainly choose to use one of those if you prefer, whatever you like. I'm just going to sort of eyeball the width here. What we want is we want to make sure that the screw heads here are not digging into the battery. And we want to make sure that the battery is well retained. So what I'm going to do, this is actually the thin blue Ummagrip. The black Ummagrip is thicker, and I just don't happen to have any of that right this minute. I've used it all. So you can see that's relatively thin, and actually I'm a little concerned that, especially as it's a little compressible, it won't protect the battery from the screw heads. So I'm actually going to just do a double layer of it. Okay, that's going to help make sure that the battery doesn't go flying in a crash. I think you always want some kind of battery retention. The battery will slide out in a crash otherwise. This battery strap that they've given us is, you can see it is just, it's slippery. It's not got any grippiness to it, as opposed to, I'm not sure if you can really tell, but this has kind of a grippy rubber coating. It's actually coming off. So what I prefer to do is I use battery pad here and I use a grippy battery strap. Okay, so that's what I suggest you. This one's from Race Day Quads. You can get them anywhere. I don't ever use this slippery kind. It's nice, it's thick, it's gonna tear. It's gonna, okay, we'll get rid of that. Grippy battery strap, because battery ejects, you're not getting home, right? You lose your battery, that's it, game over. You got to keep your battery. So battery strap. Boom. You can use the one that came with it if you don't have another one. That's okay. I'm just saying. You definitely want some kind of battery pad, though. Definitely. Holy crap, guys! This is it. We have a quadcopter. We are nearly ready to go fly this. The next thing we need to do is we need to test it with the props off, and let's do that right now. And we are going to go do that right now, but I've just looked at the length of this video and it's like 25 freaking minutes long, and sometimes people freak out if they see a video that's excessively long. So I'm going to render this one out. I'm going to upload it so you can get started watching it. And literally this exact minute, I am just finishing the edit on the actual final part. I just got back in from flying the quad, and I got to just edit that stuff together. So look forward to that coming later today. Or if it's like a week from now, it's already out. It's in the playlist in the video description. Later on, guys.